Hello, I'm Felicity Cohen. I'm so excited to introduce you to my Wellness Warriors podcast. For over 20 years, I've been a passionate advocate for helping thousands of Australians find solutions to treating obesity and health-related complications through surgical intervention and holistic managed care. My podcast is dedicated to all the people, past, present, and future, who have helped shape my journey and continue to inspire me to work consistently to achieve a healthier Australia in both adults and future generations. I hope you enjoy it. Hello and welcome to Angela Warm. Welcome to my Wellness Warriors podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here with me today. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Felicity. I'm so annoyed. I have a Wellness Warrior mug. It literally says Wellness Warrior, and I have it at the house though, but I'm at my office this morning, so.
Oh, wow. So you're in Switzerland. You're an expat from the United States, having lived in Florida, and you're an ex-scientist and now a seasonal health coach is how you describe yourself.
Correct. And I always like to say, yes, I'm a former scientist, but I think once you're a scientist, that's kind of part of how you approach life in general. I look, even for my health coaching, I try and, solve problems and get to the root cause and see what's causing things. So I feel like the scientist mode is always there.
Absolutely. Yes. So you had a professional career as an environmental scientist?
Yes, I did. I worked in the renewable energy sector. Right now, the company I work for is like the second largest renewable energy, builder in the US. So, and I loved it. I loved my job. I did a lot of environmental permitting, making sure things were in compliance with the rules and regulations of, the United States, that laws. And then, we got this opportunity to move to Switzerland from on my husband's side of the career. And right at that time, I just had my first kid. So I was like, oh, this will be a good opportunity to, take some time off. It was only supposed to be 2 or 3 years. I figured we'd be back in Florida, after a couple of years. And then, I'd be back at work. But we fell in love with Switzerland. I had another child while we lived here. And we decided to give it a go as expats. And we've been here 10 years. So, it took me a couple of years of finding my feet in a different country and, raising kids in a foreign country. And I said, I have to do something, I gotta do something. And one of the things that made me, I always tell people, I went back and got my health coaching certification for really selfish reasons. It's because I found myself getting, I had the flu twice in that span of being a young mom with no, family support around, when I consider myself pretty healthy and never having had the flu in my life, having it in a short period of time. I was like, again, it's that scientist cap went back on. I was like, what is the cause of this? Why is this happening? And so I went back and got my health coaching certification for selfish reasons for myself. I wanted to be healthy, but also to raise my children in the best way possible. But like many health coaches I meet, what you learn during that training, that certification training, is really eye-opening. And you cannot help but want to share it with other people, especially other tired moms, who need support in that way. So that's kind of how my journey to health coaching from scientist came to be.
I've always imagined that the Swiss, and from what I've seen and having traveled through Switzerland, that they're a really fit, healthy kind of population, and they get out on weekends, they're on the trains, they're either skiing or, walking in the snow, snowshoe walking, whatever it takes. And I'll actually never forget once going on a hike in the snow in Switzerland and being absolutely amazed at how old the people seemed.
Yeah.
So they seem to stay pretty fit, healthy, and well into old age.
It's so true. That was really one of the, surprising to me too, is because in the United States, you don't see a lot of people out walking, just generally walking for fun, but here you see all ages, from kids up to older retirees biking, I always joke when I'm out on a walk or a bike ride with my husband, I was like, that's us when we retire, because you see that age group and it's so lovely. They are much more fit. And it was very interesting. we got to go back to Florida this summer because we had not been back in 2 years. We hadn't seen our family. And I was so lazy because one, it was blazing hot, so unless you're an early bird and can get out, before the crack of dawn, the heat is very oppressive in Florida in the summer. And of course I've gotten unused to it because my Florida blood has changed a bit. So I found myself being a little bit definitely more sedentary, and literally the week we got back to Switzerland and school started, I'm walking to the store, I'm walking to friends' house, I'm walking everywhere. And it was so amazing the difference I felt, just not just physically, but emotionally as well. I found myself sleeping better. My anxiety I had in Florida just from all the travel and the, COVID situation, was reduced greatly. But it was just really obvious how different that is. Like you have either a sedentary lifestyle or you have one that, and I'm not saying I'm not out going to the gym. I'm not out jogging. I am just on a daily basis walking at least 10,000 steps just from my lifestyle. I walk to work, I walk to the grocery store, I might, walk to the train station. So it makes a huge difference, like that kind of lifestyle. So yes, you're absolutely right. And it's all age groups, and it's lovely on Sundays. I'm kind of envious because you'll see on Sundays the younger kids are with their grandparents a lot. I don't know, to give the parents a break or whatever. And so it's like I kind of get, I was like, oh, I wish my family was close by. But you see that the grandparents out taking the kids for, a bike ride or a walk. It's so, yeah, it's a lovely. Yeah, and in the mountains, like you said, in the mountains, you see it as well. It's very active. We were in the mountains a couple of weeks ago, and it was just a lovely weekend. I don't know if Switzerland had a really rough summer. We're almost fortunate we went back to Florida. They had lots of rain and just icky, not the best summer weather. So the few days of summer they had a few weeks ago, people were out, and the trails were packed. Like it was actually almost too crowded. There were so many bicyclists and people on the trails, which again is lovely to see, but at the same time you're like, wow, it's almost too crowded. So yeah, it happens.
Wow. So do you think that the phenomenon of feeling as though you're in that overwhelm mode of trying to juggle life when you've got children and work, and for you living in a new country at the time, do you think the experience for you is pretty much something that is universal, that most women get into this state of just throw their hands in the air, I've got too much to deal with, and end up compromising their own health? Is that something that you feel is a worldwide state of play?
Absolutely. I think women, I always joke, like, if my husband should get one less hour of sleep, he's unbearable to be around. Whereas, you think of like us raising kids, or, all the things we do as women, we worry about things at night. Oh my gosh, and we compromise our sleep, we compromise our health in the process. It's all connected. But absolutely. And I think this COVID situation has also shined a big light on that as to how much women do, whether now that they had to like either stay home and homeschool, as well as do their regular job, as well as do the household chores. And yeah, no, I agree absolutely that women take on way too much at the expense of their own health. It's one of my mantras, like, do not put your health on the back burner for the sake of everybody else's, because you're not showing up to your relationships, you're not showing up to your family, you're not showing up to your career, whatever it is that you are passionate about with all your, passion and ability, if your health is compromised. Everyone, and I think as women, we kind of do ignore it for a long time until something happens, whether it's a health scare or a burnout or, a breakdown even. I mean, it happened. Yeah.
Definitely. And there's typically some form of a trigger that pushes us into this, realization that, yes, we need to look after ourselves better.
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely.
So for you, those triggers, there were lots of them for you. And clearly the flu wasn't something that was exclusive just to contracting in Switzerland, but
no.
The state of what you were dealing with at the time. Do you think that because of the whole big COVID situation that we're more focused on our immunity now as well, that we're more in tune with we need to protect our health a little bit more?
I mean, I think some people are and some people aren't. You know, it's one of those things that I don't I think some people look at it and be like, okay, I want to, you know, prioritize what's important, and some people are. Like, I've had many clients come to me and be like, you know, in the last 18 months, are like, okay, I'm ready to, you know, get healthy, where I know that others are, you know, I have even friends and family who are like, nah, it'll, you know, it just is what it is, and they'll get through it or deal with it at another time. I don't know. Yeah. So I think it's, I think it's just something that is different for everybody. Yeah.
So what are some of the key areas that you focus on in your health coaching business?
So it's funny. So for, you know, the last 5 or 6 years, I've worked a lot with moms, obviously, who are tired, lack of energy, you know, just finding that getting sick very often. So working on making sure they're getting the right nutrients, obviously, and prioritizing their, you know, health and nutrition but you know, what I always say, moms, is that has a ripple effect on your family. You know, if you can eat healthy, you're setting a good example, and usually it does spill over into, you know, your kids eating a bit better and those kind of things. So definitely just giving them more energy. But actually, over the last, gosh, I would say year to 2 years, I've actually been working with a lot of women going through perimenopause as well, and that's why I kind of say it's a seasonal approach to health and wellness, because really what, you know, maybe what you did in your 20s and 30s for, you know, health reasons really isn't what you need in your 40s and 50s. You know, in our 20s and 30s as women, we tend to like crazy diet or over exercise or do things that we think are healthy, maybe cut out fat or cut calories, when in your 40s and 50s that is just not going to work. It's going to send your send your body into kind of a adrenal overload of, you know, a lot of cortisol going out. But also, I think in our 40s and 50s, we need to also focus on stress management, dealing with some of the emotional things that we've maybe have harbored for many decades. I believe that menopause is that time to maybe address those situations and understand that that has an impact on your health and well-being as well. So yeah, so that's kind of my, if you're saying like, I think that's what you asked me, who I work with or who I'm, you know, helping the most.
Is stress something that you feel is more heightened as women enter into that stage of life, 40s and 50s, that they might have ignored previously? Is it exacerbating the concerns, the issues, and the impact of what they're dealing with once they hit perimenopause?
It's definitely exasperating the symptoms of, you know, what can come up. And I think it's also that there's such a narrative around perimenopause and menopause that almost like a taboo that women don't talk about, you know, like they're almost embarrassed to talk about it. Or if they go to their doctor, the doctor might brush it off, you know, kind of like, oh, you're just going to have to deal with this. So I feel like a lot of women have internalized it, but also haven't felt like it's safe enough to talk about it with their friends or their, you know, mom or their, you know, those or whoever, you know, their siblings, those kind of things. So my, you know, one of my goals is let's talk about it more. Let's get it out of the, you know, taboo of wherever it should be, and kind of flip the script and say, like, this is you know, like almost every woman is going to go through this. Let's talk about it, and let's talk about what we can do to help reduce those symptoms. And stress is definitely one of them. But I think that stress is, for a lot of women, is so, yes, like we talked about in the beginning, you know, we just take on so much, whether it's working, family, household, those kind of things. But also as we enter this, you know, what I kind of call this second chapter of our lives, it's also like it's a big reevaluation for a lot of women. You know, it's looking at, okay, I'm past that fertile stage. Like, who am I now? And they're asking themselves a lot of questions like, and what do I want to do? What do I want to, you know, set up for myself or my family, or how do I want to see the next chapter of, you know, their lives? And I think that it's in itself brings on a lot of stress, you know, a lot of, and I mean, the whole science behind, you know, our perimenopause with the estrogen, you know, kind of being on a roller coaster ride, and the progesterone I mean, the progesterone hormones are kind of like our feel-good hormones. So like when that drops, it does cause, some anxiety, some depression. So knowing how to deal with that, I think, is really important. And that's really, what I try and help women with is like, there's ways we can work on this, or, help modify those symptoms really without, having to get really extreme about anything, really. Yeah.
So, what are some of your top tips for stress management, and how do you actually deal with it, and how do you encourage and empower women to develop strategies to cope better?
So as a scientist, I like to toss in some facts to them, that's one of my, but I mean, just thinking about how, stress and worry, and anxiety it actually has a physiological component in our bodies, in it. I always try to tell my clients, like, think back in the caveman days, like you're, you're running, or you're stressed from being chased by something. Your body literally sends signals to hold on to anything, and so I'm saying, like, fat, toxins, anything you have in your body, it's going to hold on to, so that, you have those reserves later. So I'm like, so let's see ways we can reduce that stress. And there is not a one size fits all approach for, stress management. And so what I tend to do is give them some options. So you can try meditation, you can try yoga, you can try, journaling, something that they, just to pick one and to try it. The other thing that I will say, I try and encourage all my clients to do is exercise. And I mean, but find some type of movement, kind of like I was saying here in Switzerland, like movement is just part of our everyday life. It's not something I go to the gym and work out for, like an hour or whatever, which is fine if that's what you like. I try and encourage them, find some type of movement that you enjoy doing, so it doesn't feel like it's a chore, or it's something you have to do. It's something you want to do because it's makes you feel good. But that kind of movement and exercise has so much benefit, not just physically, but mentally as well, to reduce that anxiety, to reduce the stress, and getting outside. I mean, it's kind of a holistic approach, because stress management also, it plays into what we eat as well. Like if we're eating a lot of sugar, a lot of processed foods, a lot of caffeine, a lot of alcohol, that's going to send those signals to the body as well, that it's stressful, or make it harder to, reduce those stress symptoms. And then obviously sleep is one, making sure we're getting quality sleep. But, and it's not just a matter of like, oh, I just need to go to bed early. No, sleep is how you, is what you do all day long to set you up for a good night's sleep. And that means getting some natural sunlight, or outdoor light at some point during the day. Getting some exercise, getting the right nutrients, those kind of things. Yeah.
So, with exercise, do you think that women hit a certain point in their lives, and if they've enjoyed or been active participators in all sorts of exercise, that they slow down and they stop? Is that what
I do.
happens?
I mean, I even see it in myself. I notice it when I can go, and slow. I notice that I've slowed down. I used to do triathlons as like, in my 30s, and then, I have kids. And so again, it goes back to that, you put everybody else's needs back on the, you put your needs on the back burner, but everyone else gets priority over you. But I think we tend to just be more sedentary, and not in general. I mean, some people are more active, some people aren't, but in general, the women who come to me are a bit more sedentary, and they've just either they never liked exercise or movement, or it just wasn't a priority to them, or they feel that as they got older, they just didn't have the energy to get out and do it or make it a priority. So yeah, finding those little nuggets of, movement that they enjoy, and encouraging them, and really starting small as well. If they're not, I never say like, oh, you need to go work out at the gym for an hour, because honestly, that can cause a lot of stress on your body as well. If you're overdoing it, especially as we get into our 40s and 50s, we can overdo exercise. I've had many clients come to me who's like, hey, I've cutting calories. I've been to the gym hours, you know, during the week, and I'm not losing weight. And I was like, actually, you're sending the wrong signals to your body. Again, going back to those like caveman days, your body thinks you're under a lot of stress doing that, you know, if you haven't been doing that for a long time, and it's holding on to that excess weight. So let's find some gentle ways to exercise. But the other thing I really try and encourage my clients to do in their 40s and 50s is strength training. We don't realize how even just 10 or 15 minutes a day can make a huge difference in building some muscles, so that you are kind of building yourself up to prevent those onslaught of kind of the, you know, what I call the postmenopausal diseases, those like your brain, the bone, the, oh my God, I call it the 3 Bs, breast. So brain, bone, breast health becomes very critical as after menopause. And I think women don't realize that if you're not, you know, setting yourself up to, you know, be somewhat healthy in during perimenopause, it can, you know, not be a pleasant circumstance after menopause. So, but the strength training really makes a big difference, you know,
It's
metabolism
so
wise.
critical. I
Yeah.
think it's so important, and I think more and more so as you get older, for bone
Yeah.
density, for
Yeah.
osteoporosis, and
Exactly.
my big thing is functional fitness. And if you're not, you know, able to move well, then you're not setting yourself up for those later
Yeah.
years. So I totally agree with you that
Yeah.
strength training should be even more and more prominent, and maybe take over from some of the more cardiovascular type
Yeah.
um, programs as you get older. So yeah, totally agree. It's very important. What are some of if you could identify the top 3 complaints, I guess, that women in their 40s and 50s present to you with, what would they look like?
It would be probably stubborn weight gain. You know, they've gained a few pounds over the years, and they just can't shake it like they did in their 20s and 30s, like the crazy fad diets or the, you know, over exercising doesn't cut it. So stubborn weight gain, energy, just feeling, you know, there's, you know, as moms, like young moms are, you know, you're tired, but this is like that bone crushing tired, you know, like you're just exhausted all the time. And then, so weight gain, energy, and a lot of aches and pains, you know, just like joint aches. And I think it goes back to your question about, are they more sedentary? I feel like that is a cause, you know, that it exasperates. So they're sedentary, they're not moving as much because they have little aches and pains, and then it just kind of gets worse. And so we work on ways to, you know, reduce, again, some of the nutrition can help that for sure, but also just like you're saying, that gentle movement, whether it's, you know, stretching, strength training, walking, you know, to get that back. So yeah, that would be what I see most common. Yeah.
Energy is something that I hear people talk about every single day, men and women, you know, constantly wanting more energy. That, you know, that feeling depleted, feeling run
Yep.
down, and that tank is just running out all the
Oh
time.
yeah.
And so you constantly hearing people saying, I just want more energy. How do you deal with that, and what are some of the tricks and tips that you actually try and get your clients to implement to give them a better surplus of energy?
I am a big advocate for having a good breakfast. You know, I mean, not everybody that work. I mean, again, I never say it's a one size fits all for everyone. If breakfast isn't your thing, that's fine. But if you are complaining about lack of energy, try having a good breakfast and making sure you're getting a good protein and a good healthy fat. That's another thing. As women, we were raised to like be afraid of fat. You know, like I had a client just last week who's like, oh, I'm not eating the egg, or she's eating egg whites or whatever, you know, instead of like, no, I'm like, eat the whole egg, please. You need all the nutrients in that egg to help you get, you know, have that sustained energy. But also I believe that breakfast sets you up for the rest of the day. You know, like if as long as you're not eating, you know, like sweets and pastries, those kind of things, if you're getting a good protein source, if you're getting a good fat and the good nutrients for breakfast, it does kind of, you know, trigger your metabolism to not have so many sugar cravings for the rest of the day. And again, I mean, I would like all your meals to be, you know, a good healthy protein, fat, carbs, you know, that kind of thing. But But I really think a lot of, I mean, it can be such an easy option to make sure you're getting that protein, because the protein helps feel, you feel full, but it also helps sustain your energy levels. And I've had many a tired mom, say that makes a big difference for them. They were just so surprised at how that helped, with their energy levels through the day. So
Amazing. You've got some beautiful recipes that I noticed on your website, and you've also got some information, and I love one of the things that you talk about is how to get kids to eat more vegetables.
yes,
Because I think, it's so important that we do educate, train, and inspire our younger generation so that they don't have the problems that maybe your clients that they're
yeah,
dealing with now, that our youth are not the ones who are going to grow up with those problems. So eating
absolutely.
more vegetables is a really great foundation for them. What
Mm-hmm.
do you tell families about how to get children to eat more vegetables?
It's a lot of trial, and I say you have to keep trying, because like I have two kids. My daughter ate everything from day one, like loves broccoli, loves, like everything. And my son was the picky one. And it was one of those where you just, were like, just try it. It wasn't, again, not to be forced, but, and I think, and I will say, like, people are amazed to hear he's 9 now. And I would say for the last 4 or 5 years, he's eaten exactly what we eat, which is lovely. It makes a big difference. But it takes them, like, I forget what the number is, like 7 or 10 times of trying something before they will eat it. So, and also just making sure you're eating healthy too. You're being a good example. When you're sitting at the table, you are having your vegetables and not, complaining about it. But also knowing how to cook vegetables. I know growing up, like, there were certain vegetables I hated because my mom didn't know how to cook them. They were soggy and mushy and, just tasted awful. But oh my, I will give you the perfect example. Was it Tuesday? One night this week, I made Brussels sprouts with some salmon, which is a very common, easy, simple, quick recipe for dinner around our house. And roasting Brussels sprouts, my kids asked for seconds. Like, I was like, there was seconds of there was more of everything. And I was like, you can have, if you need more, there's salmon, there's Brussels sprouts, I think we had some black rice. And they're like, oh, can we have some more Brussels sprouts? And that's when, like, as a mom, you're like, yes, I've done the right, I've done well. But it's also about how to cook them so they taste good, like, it doesn't, and you don't have to slather them with cheese and, all the things that to make them taste good. You can make vegetables in a really healthy way. And I think that makes a huge difference as well. And yes, I did the sneaking in of, like, I'll put zucchini and like muffins and things, just, and if we have scrambled eggs, we'll put some spinach in them. I mean, it's just something they got used to eating, and I think because my kids are also super active, they're also out biking to their friend's house or doing a lot of sports. So they're hungry. And it's at that point where they're going to eat what's in front of them, and it's usually 9 times out of 10 pretty darn healthy. So lots of
That's
vegetables.
Love it. And I love the look of some of your recipes, and you've got a 3-day meal plan that you've designed for family food
Yeah.
so that people can cook their meals and it doesn't have to be too time consuming. I'm a great
Yeah.
fan of the 30-minute meal, but I also love, family food that we're including our children and really making family meal times a priority.
Yeah.
What does that look like is it any different in Switzerland, or is it anything different for you?
It was very different from the US because in Switzerland here they have their big warm meal at lunchtime. Like, we literally as a family have 3 meals a day together, because we have breakfast together, and then the kids come home for lunch, even into high school, and the older kids lunch I mean, they might, I guess when they get older they could go to lunch if they wanted. They don't have to come home. But so the kids come home for lunch, they get a warm meal at lunch. I mean, not every day, obviously, and then dinner. Here in Switzerland, dinner is more of like a bread, cold cuts. But even I mean, I'm sure moms are like scratching their head, but I still cook 3 meals a day. But, we have 3. Obviously, in the summer, we have more salads and cooler foods. And again, my seasonal approach is we eat what's in season. So in this winter, we're going to eat more soups and, winter vegetables, those kind of things. But also making it easy, like I'm a big advocate for you make extra rice so that you can have that with your next, a meal later in the week, or, make a big pot of beans so that you can make several things with it. But yeah, the meals, and then my kids often help with that. Like when I always joke with my picky son, when I started getting him to help me in the kitchen, like he's like the leak washer, we call him, like encouraging that and making it a game and making it fun. And that night, I will never forget, after he helped me wash, all the dirt out from the leeks, making leek soup, he's like, oh, this is the best soup ever. And you're like, yes, because he had this vested interest in it. And a lot of moms I know are like, oh, my kid's in the kitchen, that's going to take extra time. And it might, but it will pay off in huge rewards, because they feel this, this I don't know, empowerment almost, like, oh, I can make something, and then they tend to eat better that way. So yeah, no, it's one, that's how. I'm not saying they always help, and they might not be doing the cooking, but my kids they know that they're helping, set the table, or, get things ready, or asking what. Yeah, it's a big family ordeal 3 times a day.
That's huge. It's a family hub, though. I'm almost a little bit disappointed that you're talking to me today from your office, because I was actually really curious to see what Stuart Little's kitchen really looked like.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So is it a situation where people do talk about how many square feet you've got?
Yeah, I think it's square meters here. Yeah. No, I think it's but actually people don't talk about it, because it's just normal life here that we live in small places, like small apartments. That's very normal. I mean, we have a 3-bedroom apartment, which is a luxury apartment, really, for, that everybody has their own bedroom. But yeah, but again, it goes back to, it was funny, I was thinking about this walking over to the office this morning, that you have to appreciate the high density here, because it gives so much open space, like, and green space for people to, again, walk and enjoy the mountains and stuff. So that's, again, coming from the US, where everybody has their own huge, house, that kind of thing. It took some getting used to, but I appreciate that change in lifestyle, like we're just used to. And I mean, and it goes back to, like, we know all our neighbors, everybody looks out for each other, it's lovely. It was funny, on Monday my daughter broke her finger. I mean, just at school, like, it was just a little fracture, but luckily and I couldn't tell really if she wasn't even crying or anything, but I was like, I don't know, is it broken, do we go to the doctor, like. And the downstairs neighbor's a nurse, and he looked at it, he's like, yeah, it's broken. I was like, okay, like, it's nice to have people close by. But yes, we have a very small, apartment.
So how was it for you and for your family living through the most challenging moments of the pandemic? Were your children homeschooled during that phase?
Switzerland had a very relaxed approach to, the COVID situation. My kids were only homeschooled for 2 months last year. So from March to May, when it, first started. And we were so lucky, because the weather was gorgeous. Like, it was like summer weather, which is unheard of here. So the kids could still, and there was no real strict lockdown. We could still go outside, enjoy. I mean, going back to, the Swiss really love being outdoors. There was never a strict lockdown here for that. Yeah. And even though our numbers were high in the beginning, we had a lot what you saw here, even though our numbers were high, and like they're getting higher again, we had a lot less deaths, a lot less hospitalizations. And I think it's because people are healthier in general. So, I mean, for us, yeah, for us, it was hard just being away from our family and worrying about, our family back in the US, but it wasn't a huge, problem for us. I don't know. I'm not trying to make little of it, because it was a different situation here. The other thing is, I think the Swiss really follow rules. As soon as there was a mask, mandate indoors, then everybody did it. There was no, yes, we have the fringe, people who might say no to that, but you wore your mask indoors, you comply with the rules, and life goes on. Yeah.
So where do you see the future of health coaching for you?
I mean, for me, I love doing I'm still doing the one-to-one coaching, and really I'm focusing on women in going through that kind of menopause transition. What I would love to see, and I'm in the process of working on, is we talked a lot about, we didn't talk a lot about it, but I mentioned it, like anxiety and depression, looking at what you want to do with your life, maybe if you want to make a change in your career. So for me, I'm putting together kind of a collaboration with some other women, outside of my area of expertise. Mine is health, well-being, nutrition, those kind of things. But I want to bring in like a life coach who specializes in, women, seeing what you're passionate about, what you want to do for the next life. But there's also a lot of other issues around menopause. There's sexual health, there's, mental health, those kind of things. And maybe pulling them together so there's a bigger collaboration around covering all those topics, so maybe like a group program or some type of membership program in 2022 that would cover some of those other topics as well. Now, when I do group programs, and I always bring in some guest speakers, whether it's life coaching, like I have a sleep expert come in one time, a sexual health expert, but I think people really are interested in. And going back to kind of what we were talking about, it's funny how, I shouldn't say it's funny, it's interesting. I've had a lot of clients who, like you said, just weren't brought up with good cooking skills. So getting back to basics on how to cook some basic, healthy meals. So maybe a chef, or, someone who specializes in home cooking, that kind of thing. So yeah, I like collaborating with other women, because entrepreneurship can be lonely when you're doing it,
Definitely.
by
That sounds
yourself.
like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Collaboration is a lot more fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's what we're looking at.
It's an absolute pleasure talking to you today, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I do have one final question that I like to ask all of my podcast guests.
Sure.
Angela, what does wellness mean to you?
I think it's showing up to your day, knowing that you've done your best, and feeling good about how you're communicating or interacting with other people. I think as a busy mom and a tired mom back, that when my kids were little, I wasn't showing up very well to the family, and I didn't like that. So I think knowing that at the end of the day, you did your best, even if it was messy or, not perfect, but just feeling like, okay, I ate well, I got some exercise, and, I had a good relationship with my family, or good connection with the family today. So that's really, for me, that's important.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Wellness Warriors podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you online with us. If you enjoyed the series, please leave your review, subscribe and follow, and we look forward to sharing many more stories with you in the future.